Trying to see it. So today I have here with me my good friend Ray. He's an educator, also a teacher. What grade do you teach, Ray?
I teach fourth and sixth science.
Fourth and sixth science.
Yep.
That's cool. So, what, how did you grow up? What made you want to get into this profession of actually educating children?
Yeah, man. So I grew up in North Philly, right off 11th and Girard and Cambridge projects, right across the street from Richard Island. So, I mean, as a kid, I never thought about being a teacher. Actually, unfortunately, like most young men, I wanted to be a football player.
Right.
So, went off to college on a scholarship and it was doing well. Fifth game of the season, I ended up getting hurt, and that pretty much ended my career. From that moment on, I knew I loved working with young people,
Right.
but I wasn't sure what capacity. So as I graduated college, I was looking for a job in community health because I did some work with gang prevention, and I couldn't find a job. So I found a job doing truancy case managing, getting young people to go to school. And I just decided in my mind that the way the system was designed, that it was never really going to fully help these young people. So I said, I got to do something different. Went over to the school district before I was laid off. I was doing administration there. And one of my mentors, after I got laid off, he was like, yo, if you really want to help these young people, you really want to create change in their lives in education, you need to go teach. I was like, bruh, ain't nobody going to teach these kids. I said, I'll do something else, but I ain't going to teach.
Right.
So he hit me back and was like, hey, look, I got a scholarship for you to go down to Cheney University, get your master's in education, get certified as a teacher. I was like, bro, like, I still don't want to teach them. But it was a sweet deal. It was a
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a scholarship and an opportunity to kind of advance myself and add something new to the resume. And then he also hooked me up. He got a phone call about a job, a new charter school opening up. And the principal actually came back and he said to me again, like, yo, I'm going to hire you, but I'm going to need you to teach, though. I'm like,
Right.
bruh, you said I'm going to be an administrator, not teach. So I did a year of administration there. Then I went into the classroom where I started teaching fifth grade. And in that moment, I realized that if I was going to create a systemic change in education, I would have to get that experience first.
Right.
I'm now in my fourth year in the classroom. I'm thoroughly enjoying the experience. My eyes have been open to like the truths and the facts of the matter, what young people go through on the daily, and why education isn't working for us right now.
Right. So, I think that's amazing. For one, in your opinion, from your experiences, what makes you think that education isn't working for us, and what do you think needs to be changed for it to be effective?
So when I think about how education has changed over years, from my personal experience up until this point in present day, one of the biggest things that has affected teacher practice, I believe personally, is standardized test taking, because so much weight is held over the heads of teachers, so much weight is held over the heads of schools and districts for them to succeed on these tests, that it becomes like this test prep center. When people forget that, when I went to school, it wasn't that long ago, but when I went to school, teachers just made it fun, and they created these experiences for us in classroom where it just seemed like we were just having fun. We were just doing this thing, but for some reason it was making sense, and I increased my understanding.
Right.
But because this idea of the standardized test taking and how schools are funded based upon it, or the lack thereof of funding for it, teachers are really now pushing students to try to be successful in this test because so much is at stake. Their jobs, their careers, schools, they're either they continue, do they not continue, and it's become this like cyclical cycle that is tearing down the quality of teaching, in my personal opinion. And it's like now our young people are at jeopardy because they're not getting education that they need to succeed in this world.
I agree. Because I actually took some classes at community. I was going for special education. So
Yeah.
I took some courses in there. I was a teaching assistant in a couple of schools for kids with special education. But I also found that everything was geared toward testing because the schools get their funding based on the test scores and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty messed up. And because if you gear them only to learn how to prepare for a test, look at all the other stuff that they're missing out on. So I feel like maybe that a solution, we had to get the parents more involved. The parents got to be able to teach them more at home. And we have to teach the kids also to not only depend on teachers, depend on their parents, but also educate themselves some if they can, like read
Yeah.
on their own, go to the library, research as much as they can, just to be self-sufficient. Because I feel like
Right.
schools, they prepare you to become a worker. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't prepare you to become a person, an individual. It's more like a robot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree, man. And it's sad and it's sick because I teach science, and for me, I have my undergrad degree was a science based in health science and community health. And for me, science is all about the art of discovery.
Right.
Like you do things over and over. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. But it's all about discovery. And when you're forcing kids to read so much and to annotate text and highlight this and highlight that, it takes the fun out of everything. Like I'm not saying reading can't be fun, it can't be adventurous, but they should be allowed to experiment with some things and make mistakes and just try and understand that in life sometimes you're gonna fail a few times before you actually get it right. And that's
true.
one of the reasons why I teach science, because it still provides that opportunity for young people to go into space and kind of create their own understandings of the world around them. So that's why I rock out with science, man.
I agree.
Only one of my grades right now are being tested in standardized testing, and last year they did pretty well. But they also had a lot of fun, and I try to make sure I maintain that balance in my class.
Yeah, that's definitely important because if the kids aren't enjoying themselves, they won't even give you, the effort. It's not always that they don't know the work or they didn't learn it. But if they're enjoying it, if they're not enjoying it, they probably don't want to put their best foot forward when it's time to show it. So
That's real.
I think that's good. Also, I see that you get involved in impacting the kids on many different levels. Like I actually formally met you. Well, we met through Instagram, but I formally met you when I came to one of your events. I did some speaking for you. It was like a youth summit for the kids over the summer last summer,
Yeah.
and I thought that was super cool. How did you get involved with that?
So in my first year, actually, in the classroom, what I realized was there was this disconnect between the community and the school. That young people often idolize those people that they will probably never meet. It's just being honest, like superstars, actors, and movie this and rappers, and that's all well and good. I mean, I get it, I understand. That's what they're inundated with in this world today. So I started this nonprofit BU365, and part of that, the mission of that, was to expose young people. Was to expose young people to people outside of the classroom setting.
Right.
People that they can look up to that they might just see in a grocery store. And that was the kind of the mindset that I went about this.
Right.
And through that, I did a lot of work within the school with my classes, with connecting them and taking them places and doing a lot of dope stuff, going out and speaking. And I got a phone call one day from Mount Airy Church of God. They had a youth summit, and they asked me to come on board to help them organize for their young men's segment of the summit. I think when we first met, I was in my second year with them, doing the planning for the young men's thing. So it came as a result of another speaking engagement I did with someone that was a part of their team, who said, "Excuse me, check this young man out. He's doing some great work." And sometimes I just can't say no to some things.
Right.
And it was one of those phone calls that I said I couldn't say no to. So I've kind of been actively involved in supporting them in that endeavor to make sure those young men had people that they can tangibly touch, but also they can to get some wisdom.
Right.
With life and experience comes wisdom, and that was part of my job, making sure I had the people there to impart some wisdom upon them.
I think that was an amazing idea for starters. And also, I think the fact that you're young and you fly, like you dress fly, you know what I'm saying? And you're a person of color, you relate to, our kids. Because what I found, we're working with the kids and I came to school, all the kids related to me because I was dressed nice. I dressed well. So they want to know, oh, Mr. Chris, what kind of sneakers are those? You know what I'm saying? What kind of jeans are those? And that's how they first relate to me. And from then I can, have other conversations with them and help them learn in different ways. So I think that that's like right on time for you. Hey, by the way, how old are you?
I'm 28. I'm 28, man. Yeah, it's getting crazy. It's 28. Yikes.
I just turned 28, so I know the feeling this last month.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday. Happy belated, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it. But yeah, and I feel like that's like we need more of that. You know what I mean? We need more young, ambitious, especially men of color to get involved if we want to change like the communities. Of course, like we can do as much as you can do in the school, but when you get outside the school, a lot of these parents aren't equipped to, teach these kids the things that they need to know, basic life skills and stuff. So they don't really have anyone to look up to. And I feel like what your program did was it brought people in for them to look up to. Like,
Right.
oh, you might not have these people on your block, or you might not have these people, growing up. But here are some people right here who are not celebrities, you know what I mean? And they're just out here trying to be better, and this is what we want better for you. So I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, even speaking to the idea of that there's a lack of black males and the idea of role models, one of the new projects that I'm embarking on actually is a book project. It's a narrative book so I don't know if you know or if your viewers know, but in the nation, there's less than 2% African-American males in the classroom. The majority of African-American males that we find in the classroom, in education, are either in administration or in higher ed.
Right.
And with that, so that creates a disparity because 65% of our classrooms are made up of African-American students. Right. So you're telling these kids to learn from these people, not saying that they can't learn from them, but you're often telling them to learn from someone that doesn't look like them, someone they feel like they can't identify with. So with this book project I'm working on now, it's a call. So let me back a little bit. A few months ago, maybe a year or two ago, I did a podcast with a couple of brothers of mine that just kind of told our stories of why we teach and why we continue to teach. We pushed it out into the world not knowing what would really happen. Fortunately, it was published by the University of Penn. So the next phase of that project is this book project where we're sending out a call to the nation, to all the black male educators out there to kind of write their story. Why do you teach? Why do you continue to teach? And whatever insight we can give to this issue. Because it is an issue. It's an issue of equity and equality for the young people in which we serve. So we're doing this book piece to get those stories, to help maybe see if we can find some trends in why folks continue to teach. There's a lot of research to talk about why black men leave the classroom.
Right.
And I can relate to a lot of those experiences and those the reasoning behind it.
Right.
But with this next piece, it's kind of like spread love. Let's talk about why we stay and what we do when we stay. So we try and take a reverse effect to this and kind of approach it a different way and hopefully encourage some other brothers to get into this industry and to really create some change in our communities.
See, I think that's dope. I mean, I've never even heard of teachers going beyond, the classroom that, the teachers that I grew up with anyway, the ones, my teachers. And I don't really know too many personal teachers, that I know. I know you, and there's another lady that I'm going to be speaking with tomorrow, actually, but she does special education. But to go outside the classroom and take initiative to find different outlets, because I feel like even with my brand, Positivity and Culture, what I wanted to do was impact the culture from different angles. Because if you try to come from one way, you're going to leave out a whole lot of, other people. So I feel like what you're doing is coming from different angles. Like you do the direct, speaking with the kids and getting people to come in. Then now you're doing you did the podcast, and now you're doing the audio book. I think that's amazing. So it's just I know it's going to keep progressing for you. But so what made you get into this profession? Like you grew up in North Philly. Like how was it growing up for you?
Oh man, it was pretty rough. I mean, so I was blessed, right? Sometimes you can be in the midst of a storm and not even know you're in a storm.
Right.
And I think that's the best way to describe my upbringing, that I was in the midst of a storm and not knowing I was in a storm. I didn't like my surroundings. I grew up in North Philly, across from Richard Island, and anybody that know the history of Philadelphia, Richard Island projects and all that goes with it. The violence, the drugs, and everything like that. So I saw that stuff on a daily, but never really fully internalized what that really meant.
Right.
But what I did understand was that I didn't like my upbringing. A lot of times I was really frustrated. I was angry and upset. I found my outlet in football, and I kind of used that as my avenue and my tool to get me from that situation. God blessed me that once I got off to high school, I had already moved from that community, unfortunately from one project to another project. But nonetheless, I left that environment to another one that seemed to be a little bit better. And once I got into high school, he kind of opened up some new doors for me to meet new people and to gain new experiences. So I use football as my avenue and my tool to get to college. Unfortunately, it was taken, well, not unfortunate, but fortunately, it was taken away from me very early on once I gained the confidence to understand that I can be successful without this game.
Right.
And that's when I kind of, continue to push forward, graduated, and did what I need to do. And here you have me today still, plugging along.
I think that's like a lot of kids, that's like an inspirational story because a lot of them might have hoop dreams and football dreams and to be rappers and stuff, and they feel like once that's they realize, oh, for whatever reason that they won't make it as far as they thought they would, that they tend to give up. You know what I mean? I think you're an example of showing that this is where I started. This was my desires, but this is what I turned into. You know what I mean? I didn't stop. You took the higher education. You kept going, and now you're educated yourself. Like, I think that's a wonderful story. So, like, did you have like support from your family, like growing up? Was your parents involved?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, my dad was away for a large portion of my life. You know, made a few mistakes, but he had to tend to that. My mom, she was there. My mom's still in the picture today. She was always in the picture. But that relationship was a lot of tension between us. But my biggest supporter was my grandma. I mean, hands down, she's still my ace. We talk on a daily. She knows me better than I know me.
Right.
She's the only person I can walk into a room and she can tell me everything that's wrong with me. And I'm like, how you know? Like,
same with my grandma.
Yeah, like, I came in here smiling and you like, nah, that's not what's wrong. I'm like, I don't, whatever. But she was the biggest and most consistent influence in my life. And like I said, she's still here today, still dropping wisdom on me, still encouraging me, still keeping me going.
Right.
And it's just been a blessing to have her. I've also had my uncles in my life who played their individual roles at different periods in my life to help show me what is a man, how does a man conduct himself and carry himself. Right. So, I mean, I've been blessed that although my life wasn't, on a silver platter and, it wasn't all peachy keen, I've been blessed to have some great supporters in my life and my family, and also some outside folks that stepped in to help, groom me and nurture me, and to help shape me into the young man who I am. So I've been blessed, man. I've had a great support system throughout my life.
I can definitely relate to that. Me, myself, I grew up in the projects. Well, I didn't grow up there, but I used to live in the projects when I was younger. My mom, my dad, and my little sister and I, and my mom and dad was on drugs until I was 11. So until my dad went away, for what he did, and then my mom went to rehab and got herself together. In that meantime, I was with my grandma. Right. And my grandma basically, like, her and my great grandma, who I came to her house after school and on the weekends and stuff. And between them two, they like made sure they instilled like morals and values and stuff that'll take me forever. You know what I mean? Like my attention to detail and me making sure that I don't just halfway do something that I fully complete it and go through with it. Like that all comes from my grandma and my great grandma. Even my great grandma taught me how to write in cursive and how to look stuff up in the dictionary. Like I was so used to asking people because my parents weren't really involved in the earlier stages, so I wasn't really that high up academically. So I'm just used to asking people to get around. My great grandma and my grandma was like, "Oh no, not here. Like, you look it up." You know what I'm saying? Well, how you spell so and so? Look it up. Like,
all right, that's real, man.
So I definitely relate to you. When my mom and my dad got themselves together when I was 11, they got back in my life, and from there they've been support. Me and my mom relationship was a little rocky because, as it is, being a teenage boy, and then my mom, having her ways is just didn't mesh well. But now we the coolest of homies. So
what's up, man? That's a blessing.
It all worked out. It's funny how life works. You think that you come from one place in your life where you in the projects or you experiencing drugs and cops and shootings and all stuff around you, and also what I wanted to bring up to you, with my friends, a lot of them actually stayed in that environment, like, and I chose not to. I was just like you. I felt like I was uncomfortable, and my analogy, the way I put it to them is, if you're outside and it's hot outside, right? It's 100 degrees. You sweating, you burning up, you're uncomfortable. What you're going to do is get out of the heat because you're uncomfortable. You know what I mean? You're going to find some shade. You're going to go in the house. You're going to find some air conditioning, get in the pool. You're going to find a way to get out of there because you're uncomfortable. Okay. So I feel like people talk to me all the time and say they're uncomfortable. They don't want it. Well, you can't quite be that uncomfortable because you would get out that heat if you were. You know what I mean? So I was trying to, encourage them. I want to know, did you have that same experience growing up?
Yeah, man. I mean, so it's unfortunate that, I've seen my first friend got killed when I was somewhere between the ages of 7 and 14. I'm not exactly sure what year, but somewhere around there. My first friend got killed. He was a little bit older than me, but we used to always hang out. He tried to rob a store and ended up getting shot in the stomach, ended up dying, unfortunately.
Mm.
And there was a few other brothers I used to run with heavy. And as time went on, I began to see that our wants from life were beginning to change.
Right.
I think it's a gradual circle of life that, you know, sometimes you grow and sometimes you outgrow the people that you were closest with. And maybe they just serve that purpose in your life for that time being.
I agree.
And you kind of just move on. Like, there's some people that, you know, I still go back to where my mom lives at today, and I see them, and it's all love.
Right.
I have nothing against you. Like, I see you, we could chop it up, we could bust it up for a little bit, but at the same time, our desires and our wants are different.
Right.
You know, I'm not a dude that's going to sit and complain about my situation if I'm not doing anything about it. You know, and even if I'm working towards something, I mean, my thoughts and my process is that it's right around the corner. I just got to keep plugging. So I don't really have time to complain about it.
Right.
So I'm not going to continue to see myself go through a struggle that I know I don't have to go through.
Exactly.
So I felt like there were cats that I ran with heavy, but I think our desires and our wants for life began to change over time. And then the amount of work that you had to put into it, you know, sometimes that eliminates who's in the running to win an ultimate prize. So, I mean, it's all love. And if I still see them, you know, it's, you know, still love.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm just in a different place in my life. And what I need for my life to get to the next level may not necessarily be in that place. So I had to, you know, find myself a new place.
Right. I feel the
same. Get out the heat, you know?
Exactly. I feel the same way. What do you think causes people? This has always been a question I ask myself. We grew up in the same neighborhood. You did the same things. I mean, I was reckless as a teenager.
Right.
Got in a million fights and everything else. But what do you think is the difference maker? What makes certain people want to excel and progress in life, and what makes certain people say, you know what, I think this is all I'm gonna be, and I don't want to go further?
I think there's a lack of vision. You know, the Bible says, you know, where there's no vision, the people will perish.
Right.
If you look at it from that standpoint, but also, like, it's hard to imagine something that you can't see, right? You know, unless
True.
you know you have the right supports that may, you know, take you somewhere, or there's some magazine that you read faithfully that kind of really sparks your interest, and then you learn something new and you learn to tap into it differently. When we're not able to conceptualize something, it's really hard to really understand. I remember as a kid, my grandma told me there were some kids that never been downtown. I was like, what? You're tripping. Because me and my grandma, it was like this thing we used to always do on Sundays after church.
Mm-hmm.
We would go downtown.
Right.
And I'm like, Grandma, we down here all the time. It's only one bus ride away. I'm like, what are you talking about? People never been down here. And then I got into my first classroom, and the kids said they never been downtown. And I get it now. I get it. Like, all you know is these four corners.
Yep.
And you've never left these four corners. So when I tell you about a downtown experience, or when I tell you about when I went here, it's hard for you to understand.
Right.
And so I feel like a lot of times when people get caught up in their situations and they begin to repeat the cycles of life that's been presented before them in years prior, is because they've never been shown any other way. So you kind of only do what you know. Right.
I can definitely relate to that. For me personally, I probably was about 21, it was maybe 7 years ago. A friend and I, myself, we were going to King of Prussia. So I was driving. We get to Chestnut Hill, and he was looking around in amazement, like, we still in Philly? I'm like, yeah, we're in Chestnut Hill. But he never been outside of our neighborhood. So all he knew, and mind you, the neighborhood that I pretty much grew up in was in Mount Airy. It was a little bad pocket of Mount Airy, but it was Mount Airy. But Mount Airy is right next to Chestnut Hill. So I was a little like, well, wow, you didn't know that we were just in Chestnut Hill. And then when we got to King of Prussia, he didn't even walk. He was just like staring, like looking around, like he was in another city or something. And it was just, to me, it was like, I come here all the time.
Right.
For him, it was like something different. So I do believe that exposure is definitely a way to change it. And that's why when I started reading books, I read my first book when I was 23, actually, like my complete first book when I was 23. And I read, it was Russell Simmons' first book that he published. And then I read The Alchemist. And then still reading these books, I was like, it's sort of like TV, because once you finish the book, you really feel like you were there. You know what I mean? Where that place is at. So it was like, wow. Like and I feel like if people can't physically get up and go, you know, read or watch something, and mentally take yourself there? You know, like when before I moved to LA, that was my actually first time. I never visited LA. I never been there before, but I knew I see it on TV. I read about it. I want to go there. So I was 23. I bought my ticket and I went, and it opened my eyes to so much different stuff, like the way people interact with each other. For example, in Philly, you got a lot of people. Somebody looking at you, they might be just admiring your outfit. But in Philly, it's like, what you looking at? You know what I'm saying? And you know, over there, I got a different experience where people was actually, you know, they would say what they wanted. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I like your outfit. Where'd you get your sneakers from? Or whatever it was. You know what I mean? People were a lot polite, and I felt like I didn't have to be on guard all the time. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that. And in Philly, I feel like if a car ride past the block twice, you got to be like, who in that car? You know what I'm saying? Or what that person keeps staring at? Because you can't get caught slipping. It's like, it's a bad way to, you know, to feel that that's the way you had to live. And I don't want, you know what I mean, kids to really have to live like that. So I think exposure is the best thing. But
yeah, and I've been fortunate that, you know, I travel often as I possibly can. If I had it my way, I'll probably travel all the time. I even took a job this summer that allowed me to travel and teach in different cities. So I usually, when I go places, sometimes I take pictures not for me, but for my young people. Like, you know, I try to be a part of my life and show them, like, you know, there's all this other cool stuff out here. And that if you can just kind of like just release yourself and just dare to dream about what else is out there and just go. It's, you know, it's amazing. You know, I encourage my kids, I say, look, I know all y'all can come up with $30. Yeah, because you're doing it. Because if you sell them joints right now, you can get at least $30.
Yeah,
I encourage them, you know, take a mega bus trip. You know, if they're of age, with, you know, with their friends, whatever. Go to New York, go to DC. You don't gotta have a whole bunch of money. Have $20, get you something to eat at McDonald's or something like that.
Yeah.
And just kind of just see it, walk around, see how people live, how people interact. Like you just said, you know, some places you'll go and people just speak just because it's the thing to do. They're not eyeing you down, and they don't mean anything wrong by it. They just kind of looking, they're observing. They like what you got going on, or vice versa. You know, so it's so important for our young people to get out and see the world, because it's one of the ways to kind of change their insight and or outlook on the world.
I agree. So, you believe that education and like you know, the outreach stuff that you're doing and the stuff that I want to continue to do as well. Do you think that that's enough, or you think it's a missing piece to a puzzle just to start changing our culture?
I mean, it's only one part. It's only one piece of the puzzle. There are days that I sit and I reflect on what I'm doing, and I'm like, is it really enough? I've also had to come to terms with the idea that I won't save every kid I've impacted. You know, I've been blessed to be in a lot of arenas and a lot of places, and I've met a few thousand young people at this time. I tried to count it up this summer. I had some downtime and tried to count the number of students I've been in front of. But the reality of it is that it really like the old saying, if it takes a village. Yeah. It does take a village of people committed to the lives of these young people to kind of create those changes. It takes one person that's going to be able to take them somewhere. It's going to take somebody else that's going to be able to sit them down. It's going to take somebody else to be able to educate them, and someone else able to just love on them. It's going to take a whole lot in order for us to get our young people and our communities to where they need to be. I think what we're doing is both commendable, but no, I don't think it's enough. It's going to take a lot more than just us and the other brothers and sisters out here, you know, on this battlefield, just plugging along, trying to create change in our community.
I agree.
It might be a little while before we get there, but I believe it can happen. I believe it will happen. And until it happens, I won't rest.
I believe that. I believe that. I'm the same way. I dedicate my life to this, and started a brand and trying to figure out a way to, you know, change our culture. I know it starts with the children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the next generation coming up. That's the way that you impact them kids, and then they'll impact their children, and then, you know, each one teach one. So right. I definitely commend what you're doing. But being a teacher and the way that the school systems are set up, do you feel conflicted, being as though you have such a desire to change these children, but you know they only giving you, they kind of got your hands tied behind your back? So do you feel conflicted?
I do. I mean, a lot of times I struggle and I wrestle with myself and my personal morals and beliefs about what I do in my practice. I think that I've learned how to to like appease them,
Mm-hmm.
but also ultimately do what I want. I've also learned that sometimes everyone won't understand the vision
Right.
of what's happening, and I understand that it may take some people some time to kind of to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've stopped trying to do was change the minds of adults. Like I will show you, hands down, I will show you time and time again. I will stay true to who I am and my beliefs. But I am not going to beg you to believe what I'm trying to do here.
Right.
I'm not going to beg you to believe in the mission that I believe in of inspiring young people through education, mentorship, and real world experiences. I can't beg you to believe in that. All I can do is just show you. I can just go work diligently, put on my show every time I step in front of those young people and create those changes. If you need to see numbers change in order for you to believe in what I'm doing, then I'm going to give you numbers.
Right.
If you need to see students' attitudes change, then I'm going to work with those young people to see those attitudes change. But ultimately, I'm here to serve the young people. I'm not here to serve any one organization, but I'm here to serve young people, and that's my call, that's my mission. That's what I'm going to do. So despite my disbelief in some of these systems and that I'm forced to work under, I'm good until I create my own. I'll do what I need to do, but I think I figured out a way to get what they want done, but ultimately, change the lives of young people.
I think that's an amazing perspective to look at it from, because although I wasn't a teacher, I was a teaching assistant, as I was saying, in a special education classroom at an alternative school. And in the schools, what I felt was the teacher that I was working with, whom I will speak with tomorrow on here, she was a phenomenal teacher, and she just didn't have the size or the ability to be able to relate to the kids to basically get them to respect her. So I was brought in as a teaching assistant to kind of get them to behave well enough for her to be able to teach. The two of us together were like a power team, and some of the kids in there, although they were in special education, they were about 12 or 13. Some of them started out on pre-K level. This one kid that I worked with all the time, although I wasn't his one-on-one, but he needed the most help. By the end of the school year, he was on the second grade reading level. It seemed like a minor progress because he's 13, but he came from pre-K to second grade. And that was leaps and bounds, because when I got into school, they told us that he was incapable of retaining information. And he showed them wrong. He proved them differently. So the following school year, we got the strategy down packed now, the teacher and I, and we got the kids back, and we ready to move. And they broke us up. They moved me out the classroom to another classroom. And I felt like it was only because they started to see progress. And that was my last year there. And it was actually her last year there as well. She went to the Philadelphia Public School District. But I felt conflicted. I felt like if I'm staying there, I'm kind of hurting them while trying to help them, because I'm not helping them to the best of my ability. And when I start trying to do too much, they was like, we want you to do enough, but not that much, and kind of move me. It's different for your the kids you work with, because they're not special education. The school that I was working with, they was getting
time out. No. My population actually is 60% sped ed.
Oh, okay.
I teach kids from nonverbal to above grade average. So I teach.
You're a wild spectrum.
I got the spectrum and no sped cert, but I do it on all different levels. I've interacted with more of those kids that's been counted out than a little bit. And those are the kids who need like the most love. It's not, you need like a dope teacher, but you just kind of need a teacher to kind of see them as a person, right, and see the potential in them. Mm-hmm. And I will probably even go on record to say that you guys probably just saw this kid with potential, mm-hmm, and not as this kid with this deficit. Right. And great teaching, from what I found, that great teachers is their perspective is what changed classrooms. Right. It's not, you did this excellent or you did that awesome. It wasn't like what you did, but it was the way you saw it. Right. And because you saw it a certain way, the way you approached it was totally different. Mm-hmm. So, I definitely can relate to your experience with teaching that kid who was on like the below average. I had a kid who, I worked my old charter school kid. She I was there for 3 years, and up until she got to my class, she spent 90% of her time out in the hallway or in somebody's office doing something. When she came to my classroom, I knew they was gonna put her in there. Mm-hmm. I told her on day one, I said, "Look, you ain't going out of this room. Right? I know you can't read. I know you're not great with math. I get it. Got it. We good. I said, but what you're not going to do is leave this room. What you're not going to do is give up on yourself. And what I'm not going to do is give up on you. I said, I got your back. We're going to thug this out. And she didn't believe me at first because she tried me. Like, she flipped desks. She threw stuff. I was like, bruh. Like, but I said, you're not leaving. It is what it is. You can do what you want, but you ain't leaving. Right. I said, I'll move everybody out the way. Go ahead. Throw your temper tantrum. Get it done. And sooner or later, she began to come around. And when she came around, we began to see change in her. Like, she enjoyed being in class. She found ways that she could actually learn. And subsequently, everything else with her changed. Her attitude changed. Her grades changed. Her mother was happier. Her mother didn't understand what's happening. She didn't understand what's happening. But all of a sudden, this is a child that was never learning before, but now she's learning.
Right.
And it's a blessing to see that happen. But that comes from just having a perspective that you can do something. You are somebody.
Exactly.
And not enough teachers believe that these kids are somebody, and that they can do something. So, you know,
I do feel like that's a huge part of it. Like, just for somebody to believe in them, you know what I'm saying? Because they feel like, you know, other people don't believe in them. Why should they believe in themselves? I actually had a kid I worked with on honor roll every year. I worked in a group home with him, a residential treatment facility. But he was on honor roll every year. He was good in basketball. He was good in boxing. Like, he was a good kid. And he, at the time, he maybe was 14, and he was from down North Philly. And he actually told me he didn't feel a need to try. He felt like there was no point in him trying to progress and do well because nobody in his family has done well. No one on his block has done well. No one in his neighborhood has done well. Why should he believe that he can do better? And it took me, you know, almost a year to like really get through to him and, you know, try to make him believe in himself. And I'm like, you're different. Everybody is not you. You know what I mean? Everybody isn't you. And people that, although people may have grew up like you did, they may have grew up in your household, they may have been raised by the same people, but they're not you. And you are different. You have a shining light in you, and you've shown that because I can see you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and he started to believe in himself, but he ultimately became. I mean, it wasn't enough because he didn't believe in enough to really have the desire to change. But to me, that I was definitely upset by that because I felt like that's the reality of a lot of kids. You know what I mean? Like not enough people tell them, you know what I mean, that we believe in you. You know what I mean? Despite your situation, and we believe that you can go further. So I definitely know that that's a huge part of it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I love what you're doing, and I feel like we need more teachers like you, and educators. I think there's a difference between teachers and educators. You know what I mean? I feel like teachers get paid to teach, and educators really, you know, make an impact, and they take, you know, get a kid something that they can take with them for life. So I feel like, you know, you do that, and I'm hopeful that you'll make a change, and you'll be able to inspire other people to do the same.
Thank you.
No problem. So definitely keep me posted and updated with all your progress. And I want to know everything that's going on. And anytime you need me again, I'm definitely there for it, and I'm all for it to help you out, bro.
Appreciate it.
No problem.